What is good, guys? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about what's going on in the markets right now and talk about Apple's stock as we have a massive event ahead of us. I'm going to break down how this could affect the markets moving forward. Before I break anything down about the markets, before I talk about Tesla stock and what's going on with Apple, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I am not a financial planner. Take none of this as financial advice. And don't forget about the Moomoo link. The offer ends very soon. Put in $100 and you're guaranteed up to 10 free stocks. Anyways, let's talk about the markets now. What on earth is going on? So the market has been pumping today, and I warned you guys about this in the morning about the big event that just came out. Apple is going to be unveiling, most likely, another VR headset, and this is what's helping the stock price pump for the time being. But I want to warn you guys that if this is a buy the rumor, sell the news kind of event, we could see a sell off afterwards. So be very, very careful. And if that does happen, Apple is what has been helping the market pump. That's why QQQ is up. That's why the Nasdaq is up, and this helped Tesla to some degree. But Tesla also had its own catalyst, as they did very, very well when it comes to sales in China. However, when it comes to Apple, if they're unveiling these new products and the new software updates and other updates for their other products, that's going to be great news for the company moving forward, helping them to generate more revenue and continue to improve their products. The VR headset unveiling would also help them enter a new world that's going to bring in a lot more revenue. It's going to help them compete with companies like Meta. And I consider this, once again, great news for the company fundamentally. But the thing is that you have to remember Apple is continuing to pump and it's been pumping approaching this big event. When Apple tends to do this, typically what happens is, or what generally happens is Apple sells off later on, but it's not a guarantee. It depends on what happens during this event. So I just want to be open minded and then talk about the importance of looking at confirmation. And I'm going to break down what levels to watch for. But, anyways, let me also add that we had the PMI reports that came out. The first one that came out did not get much of a reaction from the markets, but at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time, the ISM Services PMI report came out. And this data was not very good overall for the economy because it's showing more and more signs of contraction, right? We're seeing a slowing economy. Services are just dropping. The PMI report's showing weakness. And this is once again what the Fed wants, showing signs of a recession getting closer. The Fed may not admit that, but we know that's exactly what the Fed is knowing, that we know they're thinking this, and they're trying to keep us cool by just not admitting any of that, but it's worth noting. So now let's talk about the event right now. Well, if you could see this chart, you will notice that Apple was pumping from the get-go in the morning, and Apple pumping helps SPY pump. Now Apple's starting to sell off a bit, and SPY is selling off a bit with it as well. This is how impactful Apple could be, and that's why it's very important to look at these levels. All right, so during the event, okay, Apple has a very strong resistance very close to this 185 zone. And if it breaks that, then there's going to be more resistance around 187, around that area right there. So 187 is where it's going to have more resistance. 185 is where it has even more resistance and it's still fighting that area. For support, you're going to be watching Apple around this 184, it has some support there, followed by 183.87, which is where the 50 EMA is. If that fails, it's going to come all the way down to like 182.38. And if that happens, the market's going to sell off pretty significantly because Apple is what is dictating the market right now. I want to just inform you guys about this. Now, during the event, Apple is just holding up quite nicely. They're very, very excited. Investors are getting ready for some big announcements, and this is helping the markets for now. But I want to warn you guys that for SPY, it just happens to be at a strong resistance point as well. What I mean by that is this 429 to about 430 zone, this entire zone has lots of resistance. SPY has struggled to really break above 430 for quite a while, for many months. The last time I did 430 back in August, we saw a big rejection around that area. Not saying it has to happen this time. I'm just noting that that's where heavy resistance is. Okay, so if we are going to pump more, let's just say it does pump a little bit more because Apple's holding up okay so far. If the market pumps up a little bit more, we're going to see this thing test 430. And there's no guarantee we break it. We have to be super careful here because 430 is heavy, heavy resistance. If it breaks this, it could make its way closer to about 432, but once again, we have to watch 430 first. In the morning, basically the PMI report came out. We got a fake breakout to trigger lots of stops before the market sold off to about 427. So if we do get another sell-off because of Apple, if Apple does start downtrending, we just have to wait and see on the event. I think it's starting like right now. For SPY, you're going to be watching support at 429. If 429 fails us, that's where we have our major support. It's going to test 428.5. If that fails us, the very strong support that's holding the market, or at least SPY up, is around 427.64 to about 427.5, the entire zone right there. If that breaks, if that fails, it's going to test 426.8 followed by 425. But we're more likely going to be testing the 50 EMA if we end up breaking below there. So those are some very important levels. It's very possible the market sells off because of Apple, but we have to be patient, right? We have to wait for confirmation. The 30-minute time frame is still looking strong for SPY. There's no true confirmation of us breaking. That's why I want to watch these levels. Specifically, the most important support right now for today is 427.5, or at least around the low of the day. We have to watch that very carefully if it does end up coming down. And resistance 430. Let me also add that we're very overbought, so I'd be very careful when it comes to like entering positions and being patient. Apple's now trying to run up. Apple's trying to go, so this is going to help SPY at least to some degree. We'll see how that goes. As far as Tesla goes, uh, Tesla's going to be on my left side. Tesla had this resistance zone between very close to 217 to about 218. The entire zone basically has been quite a strong resistance for Tesla, and Tesla managed to break above it. But then we had strong resistance around 220. And you can see Tesla was just chopping back and forth between this zone and this 220 resistance, back and forth over and over and over again. So the question is, could Tesla break 220 and hold it? If we manage to do that and maintain some strong technicals, we could see Tesla hit 222.5, then 225 potentially. But the problem with Tesla is there is a bearish divergence that has been developing. Okay, I'm using the word developing. I'm not saying that it means we have to tank, but in order for us to invalidate it, we need to see Tesla break the high of the day, and it has to, change in its RSI, gain a lot more relative strength. But for now, there is a bearish divergence on the 30-minute time frame. And if you zoom out, there's an even bigger one on the QQQ. I think there's another one on Tesla as well. There's a bigger one right here on the 30-minute, also on the hourly. So be very careful on Tesla, okay? If Tesla does break below 217, it's likely to come all the way down to 214.5. So just be careful. Just because there's a bearish divergence, it does not mean the market has to just tank immediately. It does not mean Tesla has to just start dropping immediately. It could try to invalidate it. It's just a very, very big red flag when it comes to this rally, and that's the reason why I'm very cautious and very careful. I'm going to be watching support very carefully on Tesla. It is struggling to break 220, but I'm not counting that out because things could change with Apple. Apple is getting very close to 185, the major resistance. It's continuing to fight, and the event is helping it. For Tesla, make sure you watch 220. If for support, don't forget the 217 zone, followed by the 214.5, which is where the 50 EMA is in the 30-minute time frame. Be very careful. There's a bearish divergence, so that's a big red flag, but we don't have any confirmation of it breaking down just yet, so be very careful. On the QQQ, this is going to be the last one I talk about just for now. Uh, the QQQ is very overbought, okay? RSI is almost at 80. And the thing is, here's the problem with it. When you zoom out, there's still a bearish divergence that's valid. And that makes me a little bit concerned. However, it's holding up and there's no confirmation of it breaking down. So I told you guys if we're bullish on the QQQ, if it breaks 356 and holds it, it's going to fly all the way up closer to about 358. We're very close to it. We're currently at 357.5, very, very close to that major, major level. It really depends on if we could break 357.5 now. If we do break it, then we could get all the way up to about 358. So it's an entire zone. We're very close to some heavy resistance. But if we end up coming down, you're going to be watching support at 357. If that fails us, 355.5 to 356, then 354, and then 353. If it breaks below 353, that's our major support. If that fails, it's going to come all the way down to 350. Okay, so be very careful when watching this thing. As far as Apple goes, it's still trying to hold up. It's very happy in this event, continuing to hold up nicely. But I'm starting to see a bearish divergence in the process of developing, so just be careful with that. It's in the process of developing, and there's no guarantee it's going to play out just yet. Just be careful. This is going to affect the entire markets. All right, guys, so that's what I have for this video. On the QQQ, I was a little bit more bearish on the QQQ. I was leaning more in that direction, but we got, a very nice looking move from this push up, and sometimes, unexpected things could happen. If you look at the pre-market, it was looking very weak, but it got a nice bounce, and it broke the level I talked about, the 356, so that was your confirmation of it pushing up. And Sometimes, things like that happen, especially during big events like this, as Apple's continuing to pump. But like I said before, we got to be careful. Be very, very careful because there are bearish divergences which are still present on the NASDAQ and also on the QQQ. There's also a couple on Tesla. If Tesla gets a rejection alongside the whole market, if the market does reject and start coming down, that's going to confirm the bearish divergences, and that's going to not be very pretty. But for now, there's no confirmation. So I'm just watching these levels very carefully, and that's what you should be doing if you're watching these charts. Not financial advice. One of the most important things to watch on the side is going to be Apple. Let's see how it moves and get ready for the big events because I'm expecting a big reaction from the market. And we'll see how Apple responds after the event because typically what happens, Apple sells off. I'm not guaranteeing it, but it is what tends to happen. So just be very careful. All right, guys, thank you for listening. Watch all these levels. This is your intraday update, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I won't be back until after the market closes in a couple of hours. So do what you have to do and remain calm, cool, and collected. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Tesla to the moon and peace out.